Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of welfare fraud. Now, I don't necessarily mean just fraud in the sense of outright sort of deception and illegality, but fraud in the sense of there are vast organizations funded by globalist NGOs, there are vast organizations operating all across the West, which will assist, aid and abet third world illiterate peasants who can't speak a lick of English, to fill out forms, to apply for various welfare benefits they're not really entitled to and wouldn't know about unless they had a very activist and aggressively activist NGO saying, did you know you can get this? Did you know you can get that? And offering it up as a smorgasbord of giveaways and freebies and handouts that the illiterate third world peasant wouldn't even conceive of, let alone be able to get their hands on. So this is, I would argue, fraud on a grand scale. Now, whether these people are entitled to these benefits, it doesn't matter. The activist NGOs are taking the view that any dollar that can be looted from the white taxpayer is somehow morally justified. Well, look, it's listed on your benefits table, so why can't we have it? These people have been oppressed for centuries in their own country. They've come here. They're entitled to these freebies and giveaways. Well, no, they're not. But it's very much an ideological game. Now, you'd think that the government would crack down on this. The public purse is meant to be protected, and if you're a straight white male, the public purse suddenly becomes all important. Whereas if you're a third world, black lesbian or something, then the public purse doesn't matter anymore, and it's opened up, and everything you want to put your clammy hands on, you can have. So there's now the people that operate in the NGOs are also the same people, and they do a round robin here, that work in the welfare system in the public service of these public service institutions in the West. So when these people finish in the public service, they go. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. They go and work at the NGO, and then back again to some other different NGO. Then they'll go and work in academia. So it's just a round robin, the conga line, if you will, of people, ideological fanatics in and out of the public service, working in the frontline welfare offices, where they perceive that it is their job to redress centuries of oppression for these brown people by giving them white people's tax money. Now, just how sort of clear this is, there was somebody lived close to us, and she was an elderly lady, couldn't drive anymore, and so on, and then I was going into the town where she had to re-register for some I think it was a medical benefit thing or something. So I said, well, I'm going in there. I'll drive you in there and drop you in. It was apparently she only had to sign a form or something, so I thought it'll be a couple of minutes. So I walked in with her, and she didn't walk very well, so I helped her get in there. And so I sat in the chair at the side, and then an operative came over to her, and I could hear it. Who's he? He's just a neighbour who drove. Well, what's his name? Name, address, phone number, date of birth, and suddenly it was a big deal. Now, the basis was that if you're claiming any sort of government benefit, medical or I don't know, pension or whatever it might be, and no one's allowed to help you, you have to fill the form out yourself. If you do need any help of any sort, it must be a welfare officer at the welfare office. Anyway, I was only just driving in because I was going in there, so I had nothing. I didn't even know what it was exactly she was wanting to accomplish there. But suddenly, I was on the subject of being interrogated, and I refused to. The threat was that if I didn't disclose even though I had nothing to do with it, if I didn't disclose who I was, name, rank, serial number, and all that sort of stuff, that they would then deny this old woman the benefit that the government, whatever it was something to do with the medical claims, if I do. So no. But the threats, the intimidation, the high-handed, the bluster, the bluffing, and so no, I'm not I'm not answering any questions. All I'm doing is giving the old lady a lift in here because she can't drive. And then it was, the welfare officer there who's acting all tough. Meg, a white woman, by the way, probably a lesbian, I would say, from the looks. Is that true? Is what he's saying true? I'm obviously the straight white male there, but the woman was white, the elderly woman there. But watching a brown illiterate person, a black illiterate person come in from the third world, very, very different. They're accorded every respect. They're given every benefit of the doubt. They're given every assistance, even though obviously there are minders and activists that are lurking around, clearly lurking around, and they claim, "Oh, I'm just an interpreter." So no, you're not. Now, in the case of, say, people that speak, Chinese, I speak enough Chinese to get a fair idea of what people are saying, and so. I can listen to some of these conversations in Chinese, and what the person said, what Qin Yang said was that they've got 500 children, all of whom have one leg, and they would just make up nonsense. And I thought, no, that's not what he's saying. He didn't say anything like that. So the lies that are being told. So it's a massive scheme of fraud, I would argue. Now, if between 65 and 75% of all migrants, illegal and otherwise, illegal aliens and actual migrants or asylum seekers, call it what you like. I mean, it's a massive fraudulent movement of people in itself. But between 65 and 75% of them are either wholly or primarily dependent on welfare as their primary source of income or their total income. Now, when you've got 3 or 4 people that are a net drain on the treasury and are contributing nothing if they're not able to make enough money to pay into the system like that, then why are they being afforded every single benefit? And why are activist NGOs that are very well funded, often funded ironically by government grants and handouts, why are they able to fraudulently game the system? Now, as I say, it's not direct fraud in every case of absolute outright illegality, where one person is registered under 10 names or something. It's not the outright illegality, but it's it's fraudulent nonetheless, I would argue, given that there's a massive organisation. There's no organisation I can go to where they're going to do that for me, but it is available to these people. So it's very much targeted to a certain group of people and certain minorities, and the sole purpose is to loot the white Western treasury. Sole purpose of that. Now, these are people that are never going to be productive citizens. They have no intention of learning English. They have no intention of integrating. They have no intention of working. And if they do work, it's a casual employment at the most menial jobs. So these are never going to be. So the idea that they're all, rocket scientists is beyond absurd. I mean, talk about a bright, shining life, for goodness sakes. So the extent of fraud, I think, needs to be considered here. Now, based on numbers that are around, and I think they're very much at the lower end of the scale, the cost of these people runs into the billions. Now, when you look at then the family, reunion chain migration thing, where they're able to bring out handicapped relatives, and they're able to do all sorts of things like that, then these relatives are entitled to all sorts of benefits and wheelchairs, motorized wheelchairs paid for by the taxpayer. There is a place called heaven on earth, and it's the Western world where you get all these handouts and benefits, and they obviously want to come out. But could they get their hands on these benefits and these handouts? Could they loot the treasury unless there was a massive infrastructure, well-oiled, well-funded, expert at finding out every little tiny handout that they can get and then signing them up for it? And of course, at this point, there is substantial fraud. For example, in Australia, if you want to bring a relative out, you have to show that you've got $100,000 or it was a sum of money. I think it's more than that, but so a sum of money in your bank account. So these people just go to a special loans company in India or China or whatever that just deposits $100,000 or whatever the amount is in these people's account. They then walk in and say, look, I got 100,000. Okay, well, you can bring in 2 relatives. But that money isn't theirs. It's just been loaned to them and as soon as they've got the piece of paper signed off to bring out the relatives, then they pay the $100,000 back to the outfit that loaned them plus some interest and so on. So these scams are widespread. Same as scams for bringing out, brides. People can be paid, $50,000, $100,000 just to marry or pretend marriage for some overseas bride is being brought in, and so Australian citizenship is being sold to people for in some cases serious money. Now this is the the wider sort of angle of the fraud here, but if these NGOs are shut down and if these fraudulent schemes are tightened up, and particularly if the welfare officers are going to be just as rigorous with the brown people as they are with the white. Again, I just gave this elderly woman a lift and said I'd wait for her because she's going to take a couple of minutes. She said I'd wait for her, and that invoked a very hostile, aggressive interrogation. Who are you? Name and number. What's your date of birth? Fuck off. but why don't they treat the brown people with the same rigor? And which is the point I'm going at here. So the only people who are going to be restricted and limited in accessing welfare is the white people. Everyone else, it's open slather. And maybe we need to have a look at this and make some changes. You're being with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.